Hi everyone. Today we have with us Bruce Parry to talk about his film Tawai, A Voice from the Forest, which will be screening at the San Francisco Green Film Festival this upcoming September. Tawai follows Bruce from Borneo to the Amazon to the Indian subcontinent as he investigates humankind's relationship with both nature and ourselves. So, hi Bruce, and thanks for joining me today.
Pleasure.
So, in the film, you state that we belong to a society that believes that it is above and beyond nature. So, how does our imposed control over nature through ways such as deforestation impact how we view the world?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think in a funny sort of way, it's almost like the other way around. I think it's not so much how we impact nature influences how we view the world. It's more like perhaps how we view the world influences how we relate to nature and how we're destroying nature. So I think that we definitely, well, I say definitely, I think that it's probably fair to say that on the whole, the type of society that we're in now sees ourselves as slightly separate to nature and above it, in the sort of the natural resources that are out there are very much resources to be utilized and taken and used. And that seems to be the sort of default value of how we place worth, less in trees, but more in planks, less in gold underground, but more on someone's ring. That's how we tend to see the value of the natural world. And I think that that's obviously something that we're all waking up to slowly, that is not necessarily the wisest way to experience ourselves on this very sort of in this closed loop of a living system that is planet Earth, and we're all in it together. And so we're waking up to that slowly, and of course going to live with indigenous peoples who have a very different way of relating to nature is obviously where we can perhaps tap into some other way of experiencing the world, other wisdom of how to be.
Great, awesome. One major theme in this film was connection, whether it be connection to the natural world, connection to one another, or connection to ourselves. In a world where we are more artificially connected than ever through social media and the internet, how can we begin to retrain ourselves to reconnect with the natural world?
Yeah, retrain ourselves to reconnect. Well, I think this is the story of our time. I think that we're all realizing that we probably do need to reevaluate and reconnect. We're at a place now where many of us are waking up to that reality. So how do we do it? Well, you could think that this is a new thing that we're waking up to, but actually, what we sort of try and highlight in the film is that maybe this has been something that's been going on for a long time. And in a way, what we show in the film is that the Penan people in particular, we highlight, they're not only connected because they're living in nature, in close proximity to it, living with each other, and also have this sort of embodied way of being in nature, but also they're exercising different, they're exercising their senses perhaps, and their bodies in a different way to we are. To hunt and to forage, you have to really be working your body and senses in a different way, and perhaps that way that they are living and being is allowing for this more empathic experience of connection. Because ultimately, to hunt and to forage, you have to be very present in the moment. You have to be very much in your senses to catch the monkey. If you're not alert in every way to everything that's going on around you, the monkey will escape. So on a daily basis, they are having to meditate. That's in a sense what meditation is focusing an awareness in the present moment, or at least one form of meditation. And also foraging. When you're out foraging, you have to be alert to what's around you. You can't just go for a walk like I might do today, whistling and looking at the horizon and just basically drifting off into some abstract time and place. You have to be very alert to what's happening around you and what is around you, so that you can collect your food. And of course, as we shifted then to agriculture, which is one of the things we talk about in the film, that may have been one of the things that's moved, that one of the things that's changed over the time. Of course, you can be fully present and aware as a farmer, but you don't have to be. You can actually allow that sort of part of yourself that needs to be trained to be very focused on the immediate moment, that can lapse over time. And maybe this is one of the things that has happened. And so this is one of the things we look at in the film is, wow, maybe once upon a time we were meditating on a daily basis, and now that we don't have to do that anymore, might it be that cultures over the eons have found certain tools or traits to retrain that part of ourselves? And we now call them spiritual practices, but really they could have just been things that cultures realized was necessary in order for them to, or for us to retrain that empathic, more interconnected way of being. So meditation, yoga, nature connection, foraging itself, hunting, all these sorts of things are ways that we can sort of retrain our body and senses to be more in the moment and more connected. And that's the other thing that we look at in the film with the work of Ian McGilchrist, is how actually when you do exercise these different parts of our body and mind, that actually you do enter into a space where you feel more empathically in tune with that which is around you. Also plant medicines, the ayahuasca and mushrooms and these various things, people often describe a sense of connection, a sense of unity with nature and that which is around you, which brings about a very different way of interacting with it. And perhaps this is what societies over the eons have found. And so you ask, what can we do today? Well, I think the same that we've always been trying to do, like give these things credibility once again. We've kind of stuck them in a bucket and called them spiritual practices to do with some religious context, but actually at the heart of most religious sort of thought processes is some form of connection. And if we can bring the element of nature back into that and take away just the human element, then here's one of the many tools that we can look at, and that's kind of what our film goes into.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you say about mindfulness practices and getting like connected to the outside world and like your senses. So many people think that meditation is kind of sitting and closing your eyes and thinking, whereas I think that a really huge portion of it is like being able to just focus in on like what's around you and let the thoughts kind of like fade away. I think that just like a changing mindset about like how we view like meditation and spiritual practices is really important.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, the reason that things like yoga and meditation and ayahuasca and stuff are so talked about today is because they really are doing something. They are affecting many people, and people are having these huge awakenings, and they're finding it positive enough that they're stepping into that and really going along with that, and that's a beautiful thing. But of course, there is also, for those who haven't necessarily gone down that path yet, it looks very much like, meditation is just navel gazing. It's all about me and like my own stuff. And actually, what I think we try and bring out in the film a little bit is that in order for us to get back in tune with our body and senses, we have to go on the inner journey. And actually, but the net result of that is actually for the benefit of others. It's not just for yourself. You have to go in and clean out some of the closet in order to be able to feel more intuitively again in yourself. But the net result of that is that allows you to connect out into the world and see yourself as part of the wider world. So in some sense, there's a sense of belief in that. You have to kind of trust that that's what's going on, and so, yeah, I think that is slowly changing as more and more people wake up to that. But there is a little bit of there's still a big debate, and until you've really tried it, it's quite understandable that you would think, why would I want to do that? I had the same experience. Why would I want to go and meditate? It looks like self-indulgent and not very healthy and a waste of time. And it's only when you take on board that actually that by going on that inner journey and cleaning out the closet and like getting rid of some of these sort of traumas that might be affecting one's behavior, you are able to feel this more empathic connection with that which is around you and adjust your behavior accordingly. I realized in my own journey that so much of my behavior that was actually causing me a lot of problems was just because I was being defensive about certain traumas or aspects of myself that I was like, clinging onto or hiding or whatever. And so only through doing those practices like meditation or ayahuasca was I able to go through that and find a much more wholesome way of relating to people. And I guess for me, the proof is in the pudding. You know, I just genuinely have a much more healthy relationship with my family and friends and nature now than I used to. And I do definitely put that down to those practices.
Wonderful, yeah. Moving on, in the film, the Penan of Borneo had a concrete understanding of where their food and materials came from, something that most in the United States seem to lack. How does this lack of knowledge impact how we view our relationship with nature and food, and how do you think we can change this?
Well, that's a big one too,
Yeah.
Michael. Yeah. Well, you know, the thing is, we are now sitting in a space where the type of lifestyle that we're in has come about over a long, long time. We didn't create this. This is like has been coming to us for some time, and we may be the generation that's waking up to various aspects of it, but we didn't necessarily create this. We're the ones that are having to wake up to the reality of what it might be. So the fact that some kids are growing up today and looking at cellophane wrapped slabs of meat in the supermarket and not connecting that with a living animal, or people see planks in the wholesale yard and don't realize that that's, half a forest disappearing. That that's not our fault necessarily. In a way, so much of that is because of the, corporate realm and the economic system that we exist in, and just all the forces that are at play that we're pawns of. So it's made very easy for us. We don't realize that in half the chocolate bars and shampoos there's palm oil that's destroying the forest and the homes for the orangutans and all the rest of it. All these are the reality of almost everything we do on a daily basis. The petrol I put in my car is causing all sorts of problems all around the world. All of these things. And so it's incredibly hard, for us to wake up to that. It's much easier to stick our heads in the sand and go, I can't deal with the enormity of what me really taking care of my behavior is going to mean. It's much easier to just follow with the masses and go, I can't do this. It just makes my life, which is already tough enough, even harder. So it's a hard one, but I think that we are going to have to. We are going to have to, because it's only going to get worse. We are existing in a space whereby these things are the reality, and we're all on this conveyor belt towards wanting more, to be more and more living like the North American dream, like the European way of life. Everyone, the rest of the world wants that, and of course we can't. We need 3 planets for us all to exist the way that we exist. So something's got to shift, and either that's by us waking up and finding another way of being, or some other thing which is going to be a lot more dark, and none of us want that. So I don't know how it's going to unfold, but I do think that awareness is the first step. So in the films that I've made, not only this film Tawai, but also in the BBC, I did a trip down the Amazon looking at globalization. I did a trip around the Arctic looking at climate change. And it became really apparent to me that I didn't want to make us all beat ourselves up for this. That it's like we can't make the change overnight. We can't just hate ourselves for the situation we're in. We have to come together and find ways to deal with these problems. But so much of it is the story and the awareness and the things that we tell each other as a society. At the moment, we're on this conveyor belt towards more goods, more fame, more money is the things that will bring you happiness. And we're kind of slowly waking up to the fact that that's not the case. So reversing the stories of our culture will be a part of it. Coming together as a collective as well it makes it much easier to make these changes when it's just you not feeling completely helpless and isolated on your own. So coming together is a strength. And then also what we place our meaning in. This is the other thing that I've noticed from the tribes is like, when you place your meaning and the pursuit of your own individual happiness is the thing that drives you. This is where you're placing your meaning in life. Then that's going to make it very hard to make these changes, because I don't want to reduce my comforts and lifestyle if the only thing that I'm interested in is pursuing my own happiness. But if your pursuit and where you find your meaning is in something beyond yourself, like the future generations, or your children, or global poverty, or climate change, or something that's beyond you, if you decide in your life which we can all do to place our meaning in that, then we can go through these difficult times. We can go through a lack or a loss in some of our comforts and a loss in some of our freedoms, but still derive our happiness because we're actually pursuing this other thing that's beyond just me and my own happiness. So these are the subtle things that I think we can learn from tribal people that will allow us to go through these changes. But it's going to be a slow process probably, and unless there's a massive shift that that could also happen. Let's be honest. But in the absence of something radical that's going to make us all wake up collectively, we're going to have to find our way through this, and it's going to be slow and it's going to be complex. But I do think that it's possible.
So, kind of going along with that, you are a filmmaker and have worked in the arts. So, I was wondering, why are the arts ever important to promoting collective action towards increasing environmental issues?
Yeah, I think that the arts are a part of storytelling. I mean, it may be one person's expression of their own emotional release or their own understanding of the world or whatever it is, but it allows for a collective taking in and absorbing and sort of evaluating of that. And that's why it's such a privilege to work in something like film, because yes, it may just be my point of view, but it's a very beautiful way of expressing something in a public realm where we can all then debate it together. And I do think that story is at the heart of this. Myth and story is how we do transcend boundaries and come together. Like money is a story, religion is a story. All of these things are just stories of ways that we can transcend our normal boundaries and come together as a collective. Nationhood is just a story. These are just things that we've created artificially in order for us to come together, and we can create them in any which way we want. And so I think that art and the internet and all of these things are allowing us to connect in very new ways that transcend the traditional sort of power-based ways of giving narratives. And so now we can create new narratives and memes that can challenge that. And if something that's really beautiful rises because it really resonates and makes sense, like I think the egalitarian story of our past, it's like one of the other reasons I really wanted to make this film was because I was the guy that lived with all these tribal people around the world. And I kind of thought I could wax lyrical about human nature and society. And then I came across the Panan and I realized that I had no idea. Here was a group that represented 95% of our time on the planet. And every other tribe that I visited was ultimately in relation to them a relatively new way of being that had hierarchy and leadership in its society. But here was the Panan that had none of that. And then through delving deeper into that and investigating more, talking to my anthropologists, I realized that actually 90% of our time on the planet, there was no hierarchy, and we were living in this incredibly peaceful way. And I almost hold back from saying those words because I feel it sounds so romantic, but I come to believe that it's actually the case. And here's part of our story that no one's even talking about. It's like a completely unknown or forgotten part, especially in our cultural narrative. We all think that it's ever been thus. We've always been aggressive. It's always been a masculine realm. It's always been warfare, and actually it's just not the case in my understanding. And so I thought that's a really important thing to bring back into the cultural narrative. Here is a story that's just not been told. And how is it that for 180,000 years, these indigenous groups who were basically one big collective sprawling out throughout the tropics, how were they able to maintain this balance and not let people get out of hand through aggression or through showing off or hoarding? Because they all held collectively that narrative of that way of being doesn't work. They have these tools that enable them to all maintain this balance. That's phenomenal. That shows to me the power of story, the power of a collective narrative, even in the absence of the experience of the net result of the problems that come about if you go down the wrong path. Even if they haven't seen that, they've still maintained the story enough to stop those things getting out of hand. And that's how we managed to maintain egalitarianism for 90% of our time on the planet. That's immense. That story deserves to be told once again. I think there's something that happens inside of us when we when we learn that, I mean, and not everyone's going to believe it because it doesn't feel true to how we see ourselves often inside. But my genuine belief is that that is the case. And so art and filmmaking and the internet and all of these new methods of sharing information and sharing wisdom are super exciting. I mean, this is an exciting time, and I think that the arts and filmmaking, documentary has a huge role to play, because we can spread those messages that can resonate, and it's not about holding to power or to try and maintain something. It's about offering information and seeing how that fits with the majority of people, and if it fits and we choose to do something differently, we actually can. Today we actually can. That's hugely exciting.
Well, that's all I had to ask you today. So thank you so much again for joining me.
Thanks, Michael. No, it's been a real pleasure.
And make sure you check out Tawai, A Voice from the Forest, this upcoming September at the San Francisco Green Film Festival. And yeah, all right.
All right, mate. Lots of love, and thanks so much for your questions. Nice talking to you, Michael.